Hey everyone, it's great to have you back. Today I want to talk about some serious stuff happening in Europe that most people aren't fully aware of. It seems Brussels is putting the squeeze on Belgium, one of its own member states, and that's raising a few eyebrows. There's a high-ranking EU official who's sounding the alarm about how America is getting a bit colder towards Europe. Meanwhile, trust in German institutions is taking a nosedive to some pretty shocking lows. And over in Britain, their healthcare system is really struggling with this mysterious super flu outbreak that has popped up. Oh, and I can't forget about a former French president stirring the pot in an unexpected way. I've tucked away the juiciest bit for the end of the episode, so hang tight. Before we dig deeper, let me share a bit about myself and why I'm here. I spent years working at one of those big, well-respected media organizations that everyone believes gives you the whole truth. But I started seeing how stories got molded, how facts ended up twisted to fit narratives that help those in power rather than the people. It just didn't sit right with me, so I decided to walk away. Now I'm here independently in Europe, keeping an eye on everything that's going on day by day and sharing what really matters without any filters or hidden agendas. I do need your support to keep this going, though. If you find what I do valuable, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, and if you're able, consider becoming a sponsor. Fact-checking is no small task, and it takes time, resources, and a lot of effort to sift through official statements, check sources, and verify claims so we don't accidentally spread misinformation. Your support helps keep this channel running independently and honestly. Trust me, you'll want to stick around until the end today because the most interesting story is saved for last. All right, let's get into it. The first big news is coming straight from Brussels, and it's got people buzzing in European political circles. A report just dropped from Politico, a favorite of the European Commission, and it's causing quite a stir. It turns out EU leaders might treat Belgium like they've been treating Hungary if Belgium doesn't get on board with a reparations loan plan. We're talking about full isolation, being sidelined and ignored in major decision-making discussions. Belgium's Prime Minister Bart Diva is now in a tough spot, facing an ultimatum. If he doesn't go along with the confiscation of those frozen Russian assets, he'll be pushed aside, just like Viktor Orban has been. It's a pretty intense situation for those Belgian diplomats and ministers right now. As we get closer to the critical summit on December 18th, all the attention is on the Belgian government, especially Bart de Wever, who's really holding his ground. It's honestly hard to believe he said that out loud. He's got some valid worries. De Wever is concerned that if this loan goes wrong and Belgium has to pay up, they'll be stuck with a hefty debt. He's asking for more security measures before he agrees to anything. But here's the kicker. Nearly all of those frozen Russian funds are locked up in a depository called Eurocla, which just happens to be based right in Brussels, Belgium's capital. So the pressure on De Wever is ramping up big time as the summit approaches. Politico pointed out that EU diplomats are using the phrase, "desperate times require desperate measures" to describe the situation. That's quite telling. It shows just how shaky things are getting. We're actually seeing the European Union consider tough measures against one of its founding members, all because Belgium wants some guarantees before taking on such a big financial risk. This isn't unity. It feels more like coercion, and everyone's eyes are on whether Belgium will bend or stand firm. And then there's the European Commission's defense guy, Andreas Kubilius, who recently dropped a serious warning that caught quite a few people off guard. He stated that the new US national security strategy is openly hostile toward the European Union. Just think about that for a second. This is the head of the EU's defense and space operations publicly accusing the incoming Trump administration of trying to divide Europe. It's causing quite a stir in European media and politics today. Is Kubilius justified in his concerns? Absolutely. The Trump administration has made its intentions clear. They're aiming to place their allies in key positions across Europe, not just keeping the ones who are close to the American Democratic Party. You know, there's a new US national security strategy out, and it's really shaking things up in Brussels. The folks there like Kubilius are pretty alarmed because it's quite clear that the United States sees a strong, united European Union as a rival, and they're taking steps to prevent that unity from getting any stronger. People in Brussels are getting more anxious by the day. What's really got them on edge is the fact that this new American strategy actually talks about backing nationalist parties across Europe and creating some internal resistance within EU countries. Basically, that means someone like Kubilius could find themselves out of a job. Imagine someone from these rising right-wing movements taking charge of space programs instead of the usual Brussels bureaucrats. This marks a major shift in strategy and signifies that things won't be the same moving forward. And that's exactly what is making the current leaders nervous. They aren't really scared of change. They're more worried about losing their power. And just when you think it can't get any more intense, there's another surprising piece of news making waves in Europe today. Alexis Gostel, who heads the EU agency dealing with banned substances, is stepping down. But before he goes, he felt the need to speak up, and his warning is pretty alarming. He said that prohibited substances are now everywhere in Europe. Yes, everywhere. After spending 10 years fighting against illegal trafficking, he's seen the market for these substances completely change. According to Gostel, there's been an influx of new substances meant for mass consumption, and the rates at which people are consuming them have shot up. The situation is quite serious, and he's calling for immediate action, not just to crack down on the dealers, but to actually find ways to protect citizens. This is a heartfelt plea from someone who's witnessed the decline firsthand. Remember when everyone used to shake their heads at the substance issues in Central America? Well, Gostel is making it clear that the same crisis is now unfolding across the European Union. That's the situation from someone who spent a decade trying to tackle it. Now let's take a look at Germany, because what's happening there is something we should all pay attention to if we care about the stability of democracy. There's a new report out that's really shaking things up, and I have to say the findings are a bit concerning. Over the last few years, people's trust in the government, politics, and media has taken quite a hit. A survey by the Institute for Public Opinion Research shows that the Bundestag and various political parties are losing support from citizens, and fast. The federal government has it the worst, with only 28% of the population saying they trust it at all. 28%. Let that sink in for a moment. The parliament isn't faring much better either. Right now, only 36% of Germans express trust in the Bundestag, which is a drop from 46% just 4 years ago. Meanwhile, political parties are facing a serious trust crisis. Their ratings keep plummeting to alarmingly low levels. And here's a kicker that should make journalists uneasy. Trust in the media is dropping even quicker. Back in 2021, 39% of German citizens said they trusted the media. Now that figure has nosedived to just 22%. This decline spans across traditional media like newspapers, radio, and TV, as well as online publications. Everything out there is losing credibility, and it's quite troubling for sure. These facts have led to some heated discussions today, but here's the key question that those in power seem reluctant to ask. Will those who've lost the trust of the people be able to learn anything from this mess? It's a complicated situation, and honestly, I have my doubts. I'll be keeping an eye on how this unfolds. In the meantime, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think is behind this trust crisis? Is it due to policy failures, dishonest journalism, or maybe something deeper? Your perspective really matters. On another note, during a press conference with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, Friedrich Merz from Germany, who might be the next chancellor, made a statement that's getting a lot of attention. Merz suggested that the US government doesn't really get the European Union. The American national security strategy has openly criticized the EU for undermining the national sovereignty of its member states and for limiting freedom of speech. He pointed out that if the American government is struggling to connect with the EU, they should at least try talking to individual member states, Germany included. Merz made it clear that he's more than willing to have that conversation with the Americans. So it seems like there's quite a bit of tension brewing between the United States and Europe. It's hard to ignore how frustrated folks in Washington are, especially with President Trump's peace plans constantly getting blocked by European pushback. In a bid to smooth things over, Mark Rutte went through his usual spiel, reminding everyone that the US really needs to show its commitment to European security. Nothing new there, just more diplomatic fluff. But let's not forget what's happening in the United Kingdom, which is genuinely worrying. The leadership in Britain's healthcare system is sounding the alarm about hospitals facing a worst-case scenario with this nasty wave of super flu. Hospitalizations shot up by 55% in just 1 week. Medical staff are telling people to wear masks on public transport, and some hospitals are even making masks mandatory. It's no surprise that more folks are being urged to get vaccinated against this rapidly spreading superflu. Experts are saying Europe is in for an unusually tough flu season this year, mainly because of a mutated strain making the rounds. And speaking of outbreaks, Spain is dealing with quite a serious situation regarding African swine fever. Officials are concerned, and they haven't shied away from suggesting that this might have come from a lab leak. That's a pretty alarming thought, to say the least. On the other side of the pond, there's some lively chatter about a remark from Vice President J.D. Vance. He unleashed a pointed critique of President Biden's policies, claiming they've left American families struggling to make ends meet. Yet, he went on to praise President Trump for making strides with tax cuts, better paying jobs, and investments in American industries, saying he's gradually making life more affordable for families. It's interesting that this time there's no one really pushing back against his claims. So we're keeping a close eye on how all these events unfold. It's a bit surprising, but even the usual media that loves to back the Democrats are staying quiet lately. Honestly, there's really not much to say when it comes to the economic struggles that everyday Americans are facing under Biden. Unfortunately, this heavy political and financial mess isn't going anywhere soon. But let's take a break from that gloom and check out some lighter, interesting stories today that you won't want to miss. First up, there's quite a buzz happening in France. A huge line formed outside a bookstore in Paris's 16th district, with people waiting for hours just to get an autograph from Nicolas Sarkozy for his new book, Diary of a Prisoner. Now, if you don't remember, Sarkozy is a former president of France who spent about 3 weeks in a prison this autumn. What makes this all the more fascinating is that books written by politicians in France usually don't sell well. That's putting it nicely, really. But Sarkozy's Diary of a Prisoner has completely broken that trend. Publishing experts claim that the massive interest in this book comes from its unique angle. Never before has a French president or any head of state from the European Union written about their time behind bars from a first-person perspective. Sarkozy even took a copy of The Count of Monte Cristo with him to prison, which probably inspired him to pen his own story of confinement. There's something darkly poetic about that situation, don't you think? A former president delving into wrongful imprisonment while he's serving time himself. Now, since we can't chat about France without touching on fashion, let's dive into that. The famous Italian fashion house, established by Valentino Garavani, has thrown everyone for a loop with their latest offerings for holiday office parties. They claim to offer nothing but the best, but there's one tiny issue. Their dresses are priced at 30,000 euros each. Yep, you heard that right. Just let that figure sink in for a moment. And while we're on the topic of fashion trends, Hermès, another luxury giant from France, has embarked on a rather unusual venture by selling leather band-aids. Yes, you read that correctly. They're suggesting people use them to dress up sneakers, bundle wires, or even cover your laptop camera. A set of 3 of these band-aids will set you back $200. It's hilariously ridiculous when you think about it. But hey, if you want to stand out in a crowd, you might just be tempted to go for it. Today was quite the roller coaster. We took a look at some serious issues, starting with Brussels putting the squeeze on Belgium over frozen Russian money. Then, an EU defense official openly pointed fingers at America, claiming it's being hostile toward European unity. Over in Germany, trust in government and media has plummeted to worrying levels, while the UK's healthcare system is really struggling under a superflu outbreak. Spain is dealing with scary potential lab leaks, too. J.D. Vance vocalized what so many Americans are feeling about the tough economic times under Biden. And get this, a former French president's prison memoir is breaking all sorts of publishing records, while luxury fashion brands are trying to sell band-aids for $200. It's honestly hard to believe he said that out loud. You might think these stories don't connect, but they all paint the same picture. Institutional trust is fading fast, people are losing faith, and the gap between political elites and the everyday person has never seemed wider. If you found this rundown helpful, it would mean a lot if you click that like button and subscribe to my channel. Independent journalism can only thrive with your support, and I'm dedicated to giving you these insights free from corporate filters or political influence. We're wading through a storm of information overload, political pressures, and plain absurdity. The corporate media world I left behind is all about keeping you comfy rather than truly informed. We're here to dig deeper, and honestly, we can't do it without you. If any of this analysis resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe. It seems like a small act for you, but it really sends a strong signal to the algorithms that you want the real deal, not just a polished narrative. I want to share something personal for a moment. Doing this work, standing apart from major networks that are swamped with verifying facts in a sea of false information, is no easy feat. We're going it alone, without the safety net of a big network or corporate backers. We really rely on this community. Every day, We're working hard to make sure that what we share with you is accurate, honest, and brave. If you believe in what we're doing here, I'd love for you to think about supporting the channel. Your backing is what keeps this independent voice alive. It helps us stay online, keeps our fight going, and most importantly, it helps us stay free. I really appreciate your trust. I'm Jonas Kraus, and remember to stay critical and keep your eyes open. I'll catch you later.